accessing your own intuition is the way to live ever forward in every direction, because you're almost never wrong when you're listening to your authentic self. So get to know the different parts of yourself, get to listening to the different parts of yourself. And no matter what comes up, do not be afraid. You can have the darkest thought in the world and you can do the same thing every time, which is just accepting it, acknowledging it, and letting it go away. I promise every single person, they know so much more about themselves and their health than they can ever imagine, that they have within themselves in this exact moment the tools to start healing. And, you know, I love this quote, like every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. And the way to do that really is by just listening to yourself. It's also like, oh, I got this ping that I want to go to this new practitioner or something like that. Go towards it and not away from it. When it feels like something I choose to, that's how you take that step ever forward and keep moving.
Mic drop. Love that one.
Hi, I'm Michelle Shapiro, Integrative Functional Dietitian from NYC. Today, Chase and I talked about a lot of really important nutrition topics. We talked about body positivity, the role of diet culture and what that response was. We talked about intuitive eating, what we can do to empower ourselves to have greater health, and how do we access our own intuition to make health choices. We also talked about what body positivity looks like from a compassionate standpoint, what it can look like from a coddling standpoint, which might be a little bit less advantageous. And we excitedly talked about what steps we can take in our health today to move ever forward. It was my joy to talk with Chase today, and we are so excited for you to hear this episode.
3, 2, 1.
Michelle, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, Chase, I'm so happy to be here.
You just came here out of New York City, just like, you know, hey, Chase, I heard you had an opening. Let me just drop some crazy Jewish geography knowledge on you. It's been
Jewish
great so far.
geography, good phrasing. Yeah. Yes, exactly. We had fun. It's already been very good.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll save it for the boopers. We'll
100%.
see. Maybe. But you not only have an incredible story of how you got well and how you kind of took your life and your health back in your own hands, but now how you help other people do the same thing or their version of that. And when I was kind of diving into your work a little bit more, I immediately connected with this representation of, air quote here, new ancient modalities, things that humans have been using and practicing and optimizing with for thousands of years that somehow, somewhere along the line are just kind of getting, I think, a little bit butchered, a little bit bastardized, or just misinformation around them. So what is going on in this modern ancient healthcare system, modern ancient wellness world we live in?
Yeah. So I think really when we think of kind of the phrasing I'm going to use for this conversation is what I would call Western medicine. Maybe we might call it Eastern medicine, Western being conventional medicine that we would find in America, or like modern medicine as we would call it, which already is a funny and interesting point to talk on, right? That it's modern has a really positive connotation.
Is it? Yeah.
Exactly. Where the world that I live in, and I'm pretty sure you live in too, is somewhere where it's like integrative or functional. So which means that we're bridging those two worlds of Eastern and Western. Really, even though my heart kind of lies more in the Eastern style of treatment and modalities, I know that meeting people in the middle in our country means probably incorporating some of that Western medicine. And there's a place for medication and everything like that. So what's kind of happened is over time, as we've seen, chronic illness rates in America have consistently gone up, regardless of the fact that we are putting more and more interventions into place, and modern medicine interventions into place, Western medicine interventions into place. From this kind of push and really when I talk about this, I want to talk specifically about diet culture and these phrases that we've been hearing a lot recently, which is the new anti-diet culture movement that's been coming out. So there's been a big push kind of in the Western medicine realm to get people to lose weight, reducing the epidemic of obesity, you know, using kind of like faceless terms to describe large groups of people, epidemiology. And really what we've been kind of seeing is this kickback from people, not really in Eastern medicine, but people who are really sick of being fat shamed and really sick of feeling like they're being ignored in doctors' offices. And what that's turned into is the anti-diet culture movement. So one of the kind of tenets that we've been seeing in the anti-diet culture movement is anything that resembles a diet, resembles weight loss advice, is now a little bit taboo. So the issue kind of with that is that we're throwing everything out with the fear that there's a moral kind of corruption aspect to some of these really old ancient modalities that we know really are like tried, tested, and true. So the problem is, where do we distinguish between what we're perceiving as like diet culture and what is actually an ancient tradition, like something like intermittent fasting or any kind of fasting that's been used for religious reasons or health reasons for millennia, like, you know, really, really long time. And where is that distinction between, you know, what fight are we fighting and how are we kind of clumping all these things together?
So as an RD, I'm curious, what is your definition, your interpretation of diet culture?
So I probably actually am anti-diet culture, which is, I like to say I'm like a radical neutral kind of person, but in that like,
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Like radically in that middle space. That's just kind of how I am. And I'll fight and defend that middle space really hard. But I think that diet culture itself is anything that is intended to put someone into a box to make them smaller and to push them into doing something in probably a more aggressive and shameful way than is productive, helpful, or and mostly is potentially harmful. So diet culture would be like, in my head, corporatism, like large companies making packaged diets for profit. That's really what I think of when I think of diet culture. I don't actually think of, you know, really fascinating new adaptations of ancient traditions. Again, like, you know, eating more like ancestral style type of eating. I don't view that as diet culture, but there is in this anti-diet culture movement, everything's kind of clumped together in that way. So for me, diet culture would be large companies poaching and preaching on people their ideals so that they can get people to pay them money. And ultimately, those efforts probably won't work and have not been successful in helping people lose weight in the past anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think the average human being, the average American, let's say, has the right access to information, has the right understanding of the information to really know when and how they are sucked into this concept of diet culture versus I'm actually just in pursuit of things that are going to help me lose weight, gain weight, maybe get well, stay well? How can I separate the noise of diet culture and really look at information that's going to serve me?
Yeah, that's really powerful. So your initial question was, do I think people know how to do that? I think intuitively, every single person knows exactly what their body needs. So what I like to do is help people lower what they've heard from other people and actually increase their own intuition around things. There's also a movement, you know, which is based on 10 principles called intuitive eating, which I'm sure that you've heard of at this point too. And the principles themselves are rock solid. The issue is, and I know you've even spoken about this on other podcasts, is it's really hard to access your intuition when your biological systems are, you know, off kilter, and actually, you know, listening to yourself might be really hard. So when it comes to approaching diet culture, the most important thing is to quiet the kind of psychological noise, and then you can kind of feel into what you need for yourself and your own intuition. So I think along the way, while doing that, it's also important to, you know, change those biological signals, which even me saying you have to approach food while you're on a psychological health journey is really contentious right now, because that could be me kind of engaging in diet culture for some people. So that's like, you know, there's the premise in the anti-diet culture movement is that you can't approach weight loss by approaching weight loss. So you can't directly approach weight loss. So, and really any efforts to lose weight are potentially harmful. Now, do I think that counting calories is the most directly effective way to lose weight? In no world do I believe that. But if it's a goal for one of my clients and they come to me and say it's really important to me, I think absolutely we have to put everything that my clients want on the table. What they want is the only thing I care about. It's not what I want for them. It's not what society wants for them. It's really them accessing, like we said, their own intuition and really finding a way to quiet what they've heard. And I actually think everyone knows already. I think we know what our bodies need.
I agree. And oftentimes it can just take a moment of peace and quiet so that we can turn down the noise of the world and turn up our own amplification, to turn up the inner voice, the intuition, the knowing that I agree we all have as human beings. I've got my ways. I've gone through my own journey, but what are some ways you would advise someone to, like, I want to get better. I want to practice. I want to turn down the noise of the world, maybe even other noise that doesn't serve me that I am creating, so that I can amplify the one that is going to serve me.
Absolutely. So the should police is a big one. Like the second you start hearing the word should, you're probably not in the right direction. When you hear something, I want, I choose, that's the kind of most important thing. What I have my clients do is first we just kind of write like a stream of consciousness, every thought around their bodies or food that's coming up at all. I said, whatever comes up, let it come up. And what's really important is this idea of our thoughts being not really like who we are, right? Our thoughts are just things that are happening. We have these neurological firings that are happening. So just allowing the thoughts to happen, no matter how dark they are, no matter how scary they are, just allowing them to happen, of course, in a safe space. And, you know, if you need the help of a provider, of course, getting that help too, but really just letting those things come up. And the way I kind of think of our thoughts is like, I picture this little kid in the playground with his mom, and she's like, I call him Timmy. Timmy's like pulling on mom's shirt, really wants her attention. Like, please tell, I really want to tell you something. The more she ignores him, the louder he screams. And if she were to just look at him and say, hi, how can I help you? Actually, he would calm down. So that's the same thing. Our body is sending us these signals of true threat. Like if we think that, you know, we get these messages that obesity is so dangerous. Imagine living in a larger body and hearing those messages. It makes your body feel like a threat onto itself, and it makes you feel unsafe. So what is your body going to do? Let me try to help you. I heard this thing. My annoying aunt at dinner told me that if you do the keto diet, you're going to lose weight. It's an actual way for us to feel safe, that we're trying to achieve these health goals. In reality, losing weight isn't always a safe thing, and it's not always the right thing for people. And the way we approach weight loss can be super unsafe, but it's just our body trying to really get our attention oftentimes. And we outsource our power to other people because we're like, they're experts. You know, I always say to my clients, I'm never giving them recommendations. Honestly, I'm telling them to let me know what they are when they're ready. So I'm pulling the whole time. And I know you're a coach, so you do the same thing too. In your health coaching time.
Yeah. Health coach Chase for sure. And that was it. And that was honestly, like when I kind of realized that for myself, and when I realized that to then apply it working with my patients, my clients, it was, I think, the biggest game changer for the right kind of goal setting,
absolutely,
adherence, empowerment, and just happiness.
Absolutely.
Because when a person could be like, oh, I can work with you to become more knowledgeable about the things that I already have access to, and then just crank it up a little bit, and to have these things come from my own idea. I used to try to weasel in the inception method, you know, in coaching. It was like, I can tell you some good stuff, but like if I can help you get to the point to where you're going to say the thing that I want you to say, or that I would, you know, coach you on, like, boom, that's where we're at.
100%. And so it's really the exact thing you're saying is the first step is accepting and acknowledging any thoughts that come up so that they can actually cool off and dissipate. Because if we have, like, you know, Aunt Karen at Thanksgiving telling us this thing about dieting, and then we have doctors who have, you know, maybe one nutrition class telling us about what diet's appropriate. You know, we have all these different messages coming in. We have these fitness influencers. Everyone's telling us all this information, and we're searching for that safety and outsourcing our, you know, really, that's the only thing, our power to other people, because we're really begging for safety from our environment. In doing that, obviously, we're sacrificing our own safety. And because these answers, if they're not coming from us, we're never going to execute on them. They're not going to feel right. And there's no one in the world who knows our own bodies better than we do. We are the experts of our own bodies. And it is so not Western to think like that. We think doctors are experts. We go to the experts, and the experts fix us. The human body cannot be fixed. It's all about achieving balance without force. And really, we think about, again, the Western medical model is very about problem, fix it, forceful, and oftentimes very effective. Like, you know, surgeries that are very necessary. There's a tremendous amount of times when that modern medicine has, you know, like ended plagues, like we talk about all these things. Like there's really,
that's a good thing.
It's a super good thing. Like I'm so not, again, radical neutral on this too. There is a total middle ground for it, but the idea that we can go to another person, that another person can fix us, even when my clients come to me and I'm like, you're probably not coming to the right person because we're going to talk for like 6 months before we talk about food. Like we got to get through a lot of other stuff. We got to get through your sleeping and these essentials and who you are as a person before I even know how to approach you. You know, if you walk into a dietitian's office and jump into food, and I know you definitely did this as a coach too, but I'm like feeling my clients as they're going. And I've had such resistance with some clients that I'm like, we need time. You know, you can feel like energetically like, oh, I'm pushing on something. I'm pulling back. That didn't feel right, you know, and moving forward. But it takes a tremendous amount of time to know who someone is as a person before you can help them to access their intuition too. You need to create that safe space. There's mirror neurons firing during those sessions. It's a huge energy exchange. So people can, I think, achieve any health goal probably on their own, but what working with a really good coach is, or a really good, any kind of practitioner is just allowing someone to sit with you until you feel safe enough to empower yourself.
So true. So true. That's a very, very important concept for me to hear again, for the listener to take home. I want to go back, if we could, to some of these other modalities that we're talking about that a lot of us will gravitate towards because of the noise in our own head, the noise in the world, information, misinformation, aspects of diet culture, things like fasting. Let's go with fasting.
Yeah, let's go with fasting.
What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong about fasting? How can we separate the noise of fasting with actually, is this right for me? How do I do it? How do I know I'm on path to success?
Oh, fasting's such a good one because I have such a unique opinion about the individualization of fasting because broadly, like, you know, if someone were to ask me, and I'm like already regretting saying this as I'm saying it, but I'm still going to say it. Like if you were to ask me straight up, like, Michelle, I have no idea what kind of eating style to do. What's like kind of on an overall, like probably the best to just follow straight up. I would say like a paleo kind of style eating, right?
Okay.
Or something like that. The problem is like the people that I trust the most in that community are also broadly recommending fasting. So I work with a lot of executive women and men, but I work with a lot of executive women who I'll speak about now who are really, really stressed. And I love them for their stress. It's a New York thing. We like, it's like hustle and bustle culture. It's a badge of honor in New York to be stressed, which is something that I'm like trying to pull out of all of us, including myself. It's like, it's not a badge of honor.
It's a great mission.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, well, thank you. And I didn't mean it is, but it's part of what I'm doing.
It is.
And I think, I'm like,
take it.
I'll take that badge of honor. And I think that with these women specifically who are working like 10 to 12 hour days, something like fasting is a stressor, but it's a positive stressor, like an hermetic type of stress, right? So when we think about adding stress, I think of it as like a total stress load. So I would really need to know what someone else's stress load is, because if you tax your HPA axis and your goal is to lower stress in the long term, adding any type of stress that's over your kind of stress threshold is going to result in negative health outcomes. So really, when I think about fasting, I have to know certain things about someone's health. I need to know what their like insulin resistance levels are, like if they're going to be able to tolerate the blood sugar ups and downs, what their lifestyle is, and if their HPA axis is already not like perfectly balanced, most likely I'm going to say let's hold off on fasting. Now, for people who are not really stressed and they have really good, insulin sensitivity, they have very low stress in their lives, I would say it's a really fun place.
Go for it. Okay, cool.
To play with, but what needs to be taken into account is those individual aspects of it, and it's very rare that it is. I would also say with women, because just from like an evolutionary biology perspective, I feel our hormones are more, our hormones are more reactive to stress because it's like protection, just like, it's like,
it has an innate characteristic that's there.
Yeah, it's
been
like
there forever.
Exactly. It's like if, we're more likely to have higher cortisol levels and things like that. So fasting, while it's can produce positive health outcomes, again, you're going to drop your blood sugar. When your blood sugar drops, your cortisol goes up. So if you're a person who's already trending high in cortisol, like I'd love to see a Dutch hormone test on someone. Yeah, it's going to result in, more fat accumulation. It's going to result in all the deleterious effects of having high cortisol, which if that's their main health issue already, you don't want to pound the pavement with fasting. Yeah. So I think the missing piece of fasting for me is the individualization of really focusing on what someone's insulin sensitivity already is, even though it can improve it. If it's causing more cortisol, it's going to cause insulin resistance anyway. So you have to look at the whole person. And I think there's many people who fasting can benefit. And I employ it as a strategy with my clients who feel they want it. Oftentimes, as we discussed, my clients will have to come to me and say, like, I am interested in this. And then I'll say, you're ready. Let's talk about like that next step. Because I'm not going to give stricter food recommendations until they are in the driver's seat and they are ready to pull the trigger on whatever it is. And I actually have this really powerful story of a client who I was working with for like over a year in weekly sessions. And she was a long-term weight loss client, was ultimately her goal. And we had some success in doing some different kind of iterations of just really balanced meal planning and things that could be really supportive. But a lot of it was also, like myself, she grew up in a larger body her whole life and working on what does that mean identity-wise. And one day she came to me and she said, what do you think about a keto diet? And I said, let's rock. Because I knew always in my head that was what was best for her. But if we hadn't dealt with what we dealt with before together and built that safe space of support, it really could have been very taxing on her body and her psychological state.
And you got her to the inception model. Like she came up with the
100%.
idea that,
I was like, oh, so funny you should say that. Like I have it written on all of her notes or anything. Exactly. I'm like, I've never heard of that diet before. What do you mean? And that was really effective for her at the time and ultimately helped her to get to like whatever level of weight loss she wanted to achieve, which was awesome.
So other than, fasting, what are some other maybe Eastern medicine, Eastern approaches that we're now revisiting here in the West that we know work for human beings, of course, given the right, foundation?
Yeah, so this is also a really powerful time because a lot of herbs and anti-inflammatory supplements. So I'm a registered dietitian, but I'm a functional dietitian. So when you're a registered dietitian, you're trained, of course, in the conventional model of nutrition. It's like a pre-med degree during your undergrad. It's similar. There's a couple classes that are different, but you're in the conventional model. So functional nutritionists view things from a root cause perspective. So if a client comes to me with anxiety or gut issues, I'm not looking to manage those conditions. I'm looking to help them reverse at the root of those conditions. So that is different than a conventional dietitian who maybe for the treatment of IBS might employ something like a low FODMAP diet. For me, a low FODMAP diet is a symptom chaser. You're just trying to get them to not feel bloated in the moment, but you're not healing underneath what's actually going on. So any kind of therapeutic diet like that is actually now seen as diet culture and dangerous. So again, there is a really delicate placement of these. Every single time a patient comes into a functional doctor or functional nutritionist office, there is an immense responsibility because we have that halo effect on us, right? People think we're the experts.
Up on the pedestal.
100%. Yeah. And what we are saying is so important to people. I feel such an immense responsibility for what we recommend. And when people go into doctor's offices of any kind and leave with a meal plan, it's a piece of paper, and follow it arbitrarily, it can lead to really dangerous and scary health outcomes in the long term. So I actually do like a low FODMAP diet for some, symptom management, because sometimes you just need to feel good, Yeah. And I do like some of these other alternative, like a SIBO plan, like a specific carb diet. Like there are actually some functional medicine plans that I think are in the short term helpful because people need to like leave their house. If they're sick every day, they have to, feel better. But in the longer term, I don't feel that I call them like junk functional nutrition because they're still Band-Aids. Everything that's a Band-Aid, it's junk functional nutrition still. I'm still not getting to the root cause. So while I'm not like, oh my God, a low FODMAP diet will lead to a fear of carbs in the long term and lead to a fear of dates or whatever, other foods are high in FODMAPs, I don't feel that if implemented in the right way, that will happen. I can still see how if you walk into a doctor's office and they give you a paper, it can lead to food fears in the long term. So in the therapeutic diet realm, a lot of gut diets are coming up as being very toxic. And then also just Ayurvedic traditions and eating foods of a warm nature versus a cold nature, implementing specific oils. And I was talking to you about how I do like abhyanga, like, oil massages and things. This is also like, I'm so not allowed to say this, but specifically related to the pandemic, herbs being anti-inflammatory or having medicinal properties got a lot of, I couldn't believe this happened because it was like, I thought people would be so much more excited about alternative and holistic and functional modalities. But I think people felt,
Particularly during the pandemic, you're saying?
I thought people would be like, oh, could ginger potentially help me? And it turned into people felt so afraid that they just wanted to hold on to pharmaceuticals.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, so there was a huge backlash during that time, which was really interesting because I was launching my company to help promote functional medicine modalities and practitioners.
Lucky you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was the exact time when people really needed that safe space and support. But there's definitely a ingrained kind of teaching, and I experienced it in my undergrad degree, and it's of no consequence to my professors who I loved. But there's definitely anything that isn't in this curriculum is scary and not scientifically proven. And I'm seeing that with even medicinal herbs and things like that too, where again, like ginger being an anti-inflammatory or something like that is like so well studied, and like we don't run studies on things that aren't profitable even.
I mean, ginger, like I don't know about an actual clinical study, but for thousands of years been used for such purposes, and now we do have the means to actually apply it in a clinical study. So it's like, hello.
Exactly. Well, the funny thing is, like, obviously, who's going to actually make the clinical studies that we need to substantiate? So it's like
probably not big pharma, unless there's some new medication they can pull out of it.
Like NAC got really hot. Stuff like that. Exactly. And then they got super interested in that. But I think that that's the other iffy part with all of this too, is that when we're talking about like labeling things as diet culture, I also want us to start dissecting, like, where was this tradition actually from? How can we honor the culture it was from? And how can we learn more about it scientifically without like just like double blind, studies, because otherwise we're not going to, we have to use a little bit of anecdotal evidence. We have to use as much, indirect conclusions. Like I would say, strawberries have fiber, and fiber can be protective for heart disease. You're not going to find a strawberry controlled nutritional observational study that shows that strawberries, because you don't know what the person's eating the rest of the day or how they're exercising. So nutritional science is already really freaking challenging. And then on top of that, people are like, well, I'm not, I don't want to take this supplement unless I know it's proven. And I'm like, well, we know that fiber is supportive for heart health. You kind of have to play a little indirect game and say we're pulling these things together. Yeah, think bigger picture. And also like these things that are so known in functional nutrition from the studies that we have are really not mainstream, and especially not in New York. And in Cal, you guys are doing better than us a little bit, I think.
Yeah, we got the woo.
You got a little more woo.
We got the woo out here.
Which there's a downside to the woo too, because some of it is actually diet culture garbage.
Yeah, Ellie's we're our own little thing out here. We're a unique animal in all facets. I've only been here 4 years, but that's been my experience so far.
Exactly. And you're also in the health space here and talking with health practitioners from both places. So I think what I've seen is that New Yorkers, and we talked about this a little bit prior too, is that like we are still in New York New York is a place of like institutions, I would say. And we're very like major hospitals, like everyone knows someone, everyone knows these places we're very like need solidity in New York. And
because this has been here for X amount of time and X amount of people have referred it, therefore it's the almighty.
Exactly. And I think that's true for a lot of major cities and a lot of just high IQ people. It would make sense. Like
a lot of belief systems in general, especially when it comes to food and healthcare and getting well and staying well. Yeah,
exactly. So I've noticed in my clients, especially that, in clients who are high performing executives, the more doctors they go to, it seems like, and from what they've reported, and I can't, of course, show you like a clinical trial for this because it's my clients and I've worked with over 1,000 clients in New York, but the more doctors they go to, the more decentralized their care is getting. They're going to such specialists. Yeah. So this doctor says, you know what? This is actually like, let's say you have dizziness. This is actually like, you have to go to an ENT for this. Let them diagnose it. All right, you got the MRI, everything looks good. Now you have to go to this doctor for this. And they're kind of being sent around from doctor to doctor because of the high level of specialization, which is funny because the specialization makes them the experts in that. But if it's not that, then they kind of get sent around. So what we really need, and what my goal is in this project that I'm working on in this company that I just rolled out, is to have landing places for people where they can go and feel safe and they can be looked at as a whole person, not just what's going on in their bodies, but who they really are, because you cannot treat someone if you don't know who you're treating. Everyone's body reacts to things differently. Everyone's mind reacts to things differently. So the goal is get people to as many safe space kind of
point person like you yourself have been in the past for people, patient advocates, where they can then say, let's make this a one-stop kind of place where the least amount of touch points you have to make to feel like you're digging, I'd say like narrow and deep, instead of just casting a really wide net and really just wasting money and more importantly, wasting hope.
I was going to say time, but hope, but that's even more precious, I think, because once that's gone, it's very, very hard to get back.
Exactly. And can you imagine going to like, I think that I read a study, I did read a study that said that by the age of 65, a majority of Americans will have been to like on average over like 28 different types of practitioners.
Wow.
Which is like a lot. And in younger people, and I'm telling you in New York, like everyone's going to everywhere and really just eager to seek these answers. And again, it's a super stressed out place, of course. And you see the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're in a major city or not. It's a really stressful time for people. And I think that as the stress goes up, again, what do? We outsource our power. The more stress goes up, we're begging for safety from our environment so much. And if I could give that message to people, like, instead of trying to seek the answers outwards, and of course for medical conditions, like please find the answers you need and get medical care, but really sit with yourself and really just get to know the thoughts that are going on in your head, get to know your fears, feel them, experience them, and then ask, and I say, just put your hand over your heart and say, what do I need? What do I need? And I think more of those answers will come up for people if they just allow those fears to happen, allow Timmy in the park to just scream and acknowledge them as they come up. I think then the fear comes down when we don't keep betraying ourselves by ignoring ourselves.
Betrayal. Yeah. I mean, that's that's a heavy word to use, but really when we paint that picture, I think that's what a lot of us have done, are doing, and probably will do again to ourselves. And that's where so many layers come up with conscious or subconscious forms of betrayal when it comes to your diet, how you're taking care of yourself, your wellness, because whether you realize it or not, when you're trying to go back to that wound, that same goal, whatever it may be, you're also bringing all your history with you of ways that you've attempted this before.
Absolutely.
And your body's going to have these subconscious ways to protect itself of, nope, tried that, didn't work, didn't feel safe, we bounce back, even worse kind of thing, which is a really, really difficult thing to overcome, which is, I think, why, to your point of diet culture, it is so much more difficult now to hit the weight loss goal we have, to get the wellness goal we have, and stay there and to know that we're safe, because we probably haven't had that many safe experiences before.
100%. Yeah. And I think that people feel, again, we're craving the safety and getting further and further away from it. And you're right, because on these, we think that like calories are just calories and we can just approach these weight loss things. And, like fitness culture has always been like, just brown rice and freaking
broccoli and chicken,
grilled
and
chicken.
yeah.
I know it's that one plate we all picture in the Tupperware. It's like,
I've been there. Yeah.
Exactly. Where it's like, just do those things. And a lot of times, like, weight loss and health changes do not come down to willpower. I can guarantee you, if someone is suffering from chronic illness, they want it more than anyone else in the world. And I can guarantee you their drive to get healthier is actually fear that's driving them so much. And the only thing that can make it worse is people inflicting more fear on them. And it's so interesting because I told you before, but we hadn't talked on this but I had lost 100 pounds, 10 years ago. And I did it in like a really aggressively, what I would call definitely diet culture way that was super negative. And I like begged my clients, I'm like, I literally did this so wrong so I could help you not do it the way that I do it. But now my intuition is so strong with things that like, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll do like a 3-day juice fast. And then I'm like, well, why are you doing a 3-day juice fast? Like whatever can come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will feel, and I'm like, who is that? Is that like someone who's, is that Michelle from, 10 years ago trying to give you a message?
Wow,
is that
wow.
Michelle from the future? And if it's Michelle from the now, I'll listen to her, but I'm like, oh, that, and then I'll feel a little sad. And I would say maybe like once every 6 months, I'll get these like thoughts where I'm just like, don't do this. It used to be 100 times a day. And now
what a powerful form of awareness that you have practiced and built up. And, you've now built up this muscle to be able to ask this question. That's very powerful.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that too. And I feel anyone in the entire world can do this. I'm not special for being able to do this, but the really
hearing that thought, and I could say it's like me and Michelle, or putting a name, to that, me and Michelle, ooh, like, you don't look good in that outfit. And I'm like, ooh, girl, who was that? Hello, 10 years ago, me and Michelle, really accessing those parts of ourselves. And again, throughout all of it, accepting and acknowledging whatever comes up. It's not who you are. Our thoughts are separate from who we are as people. They're just happening. And we just need to listen to them so that they can go away.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I want to go back a little bit, if we could, to something that you were talking about when it comes to the modality that we're going to pick. I think you did an excellent job at kind of describing proper ways, like just proper questions, but then proper ways to go about seeing if this is the right modality for me. But you said something that caught my attention about just wanting to feel good. So I don't know, maybe a little devil's advocate here, but what about the person that I'm just doing this? I haven't, maybe there's definitely value and importance in me asking these type of questions or getting preliminary labs or working with a certain type of professional. But for whatever reason, I gravitated towards this diet or this way of eating, this lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. And it's making me feel better than I did before. But that might not be the best thing for me long term. I might be misled in some way, or I might be building these maybe like subconscious poor habits that aren't going to serve me in the long term that we're seeing with a lot of diet culture, accumulating.
Absolutely.
So what would you say to the person that's like, I'm feeling better. I'm losing the weight. I'm gaining the weight. My just health. I feel better. And in my eyes, I look better. Like I'm a better me, or I'm the me that I want to be. How do you maintain that while building the level of awareness to know that maybe what you're doing, you're actually contributing to, down the road, not serving you as much?
I think that if someone feels good, for me, it's like a definite gold standard thing. There's a little bit of like a high you get from like dieting too. And definitely like when you get success, the scale can be like super addictive too. Like it's so
Newbie
tangible.
Gains. Yeah.
100%. Exactly. Either direction, the scale can be super addictive too. I think that asking really important questions of yourself too, like why does this feel good? Does it make my hands feel less swollen? Does it make my stomach feel better? Do I feel stronger? Does it make me feel better in the mirror? Asking those questions, like what about this does make me feel really good? And anytime you're making a diet change, anyone's making a diet change, it's a big deal. It's a serious decision. You're changing what is going into your body as fuel. This is literally, we need food to be alive. It is like the craziest thing that there's this thing that like tastes good that also like makes us be alive. It's so
pretty wild.
It's like,
it's pretty cool.
Like God's light going into the food and then coming into our bodies, like crazy, like the coolest thing ever. So, but any drastic changes again, and really when I think about modern medicine, I think of force, and any changes you make that are really forceful are going to have an opposite effect on the back end. So me losing close to 100 pounds, trigger warning, in like less than 3 months resulted in major health issues after. Like my levels were all off. And trust me, I thought I was like, I'm killing it. The world is telling me I'm fabulous.
I know it.
Exactly.
I know it. Yeah.
Exactly. Everyone was like, you look amazing. You've never, I look back at pictures. I'm like, I was jaundiced. Like I literally had liver issues from toxicity from being released from my fat cells. I was like,
and these are the things that you don't know are going to happen. Like you don't know how good feels until you finally feel good.
100%.
We're just walking for so many years, so many decades, some of us, in just denial of our own potential.
100%. So the answer is the feel good a high? Is the feel good a tangible physical sensation? Is the feel good a rebellion? I want to stick it to someone else. I want to show people I can do this. Ask yourself where the feel good comes from. The other thing is, if you do really feel good and it's an authentic physical sensation coming from a physical move you made, you have to listen to yourself on that too. And I think, again, since I said people are the experts of their own body, I would let someone roll with that. As a healthcare professional, if I saw it was impacting someone on the back end, what I would do is say, oh my God, I'm so glad you feel good. Let's run some labs and make sure that you feel really good. Let's make sure I think you feel really good too,
That is a sneaky move. Exactly. I like that. That is a sneaky move.
And I'll also ask clients who will say, I've been doing this for so long. Clients who maybe like let's say they skipped a couple months and they're doing their own thing and they're like, I'm feeling so good. I'm a little bit nervous. Like maybe something else is going on. And again, I'll say like, let's just check everything out then. But in a really non-judgmental way and in a really, let's put the ball in your court still. What do you think? And asking for consent in a healthcare practice of any kind is the most important thing in the world. People, and I can't express this enough, people are going to practitioners for help.
and they're leaving feeling completely dismissed and gaslit. I run with my clients, we talk about this all the time. A lot of the time I'm unpacking medical stressors from past appointments with nutritionists and doctors.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
In appointments.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, accessing, the last thing I want to do is when a client tells me they're feeling good and they're really excited about something is be like, no, you're wrong. No way I'm going to do that. But again, I have to consider health risks for people. So I think that's where a friend, a practitioner, anyone who loves you in your life can really come in handy, is putting a little bit of a mirror up and just saying like, do we feel really good? And what does feeling really good look like? And how do we keep the feeling good happening for a long time?
Yeah.
too?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. In your practice, and maybe even, personally, what are you seeing these days being primary goals of people and primary ways in which they're going about accomplishing those goals? Has wellness changed? Has weight loss changed significantly? What's going on out there, you see?
Gosh, yeah. So there's the biggest shift that I've seen. There's two shifts that I've seen recently. So I am getting a lot of clients who have been working with, this is very saucy, but have been working with health at every size practitioners, who are these incredibly empathetic, compassionate practitioners who have a specific training to help people morally to defer fat shaming, to heal from medical trauma regarding fat shaming, and to understand their own worth in, of course, any body size they have. So a lot of my clients are going to Hays informed practitioners or going to intuitive eating practitioners. And what's happening is, as they're working on this really important psychological and moral component of their health, their actual physical health is declining.
Really?
So in many times that's not the case. I happen to be the person that people will go to when that's the case, because they know that my clients and people who approach me know that I'm, like I said, radically neutral. I'm a radical middle ground person. So I think that the principles of Hays and intuitive eating are rock solid on a psychological standpoint, but they're a psychological solution for physical issues.
Okay.
So like the last principle of intuitive eating is gentle nutrition, but that's a model, that nutritionists are working with. And again, this could be the power of Hays and intuitive eating for those with eating disorders cannot be overstated. I could scream it from the rooftops. It is the most amazing, radical response to what was so much damage that was done from diet culture. And it is the most necessary movement, ideology, and set of principles. Absolutely. Where we fall into an issue, again, is when those biological kind of stressors are coming up or situations are coming up. We need solutions. If someone has IBS, intuitive eating can definitely help soothe the vagus nerve so their digestion can be better. There's tremendous amount of support that can be given. But if someone has IBS because they have leaky gut, it doesn't matter what you're doing on a psychological standpoint. Physically, you still have to heal the issue. You still have to seal the lining of the gut. So it doesn't matter what you're doing from a psychological standpoint.
Which goes back to your earlier point of how and why it's so important to not just address symptoms.
Absolutely.
Same symptoms can manifest from totally different root causes.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it's not even so much of a Band-Aid because it is psychologically extremely supportive, but you still need that physical support too. So how do you also, again, it's this push and pull. How do you achieve that physical support? Where my clients, I really only work with 3 different clients who are working to reverse anxiety. And again, I don't manage. I'm a New Yorker. We don't like manage things. I'm going to obliterate it or I'm not doing it. Like that's not how I play. And then reversing gut issues and then losing weight in a body neutral way. So again, body positivity is part of this Hays informed movement, incredible principle within. And my clients all know that I operate from an absolutely body positive perspective, but it feels a little safer for people to hear body neutral. And what I mean is that by body neutrality is that you don't have to love your body every day, but you have to respect your body every day.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so that's where the neutrality comes in.
Yeah.
So how do I have my clients gently making health changes, but at the same time, really holding on to those really important moral principles that they learned from other practitioners? And then it's like, how would you feel if I said we could have 3 meals a day? Would that feel really hard? And I want people to do things that feel a little hard, but not challenging and not resistant. Or like, no, that would feel hard. That's why I'm asking for consent the whole time. So people are coming to me very recently. A lot of times when they did the work with intuitive eating, they found benefits on a psychological level, but they found that their physical health was declining.
either from gut issues
or not getting the
chronic
physical
illness.
results maybe they had hoped for through this modality.
Absolutely,
Okay.
which is really hard for me to say because it's just a collection of like the most empathetic, amazing practitioners who are doing such important work. But there is, I think, functional nutrition is the missing piece, and like if we can bridge the two, like oh my God, the two best things in the world.
Oh, yeah.
It's both of them are
Yeah.
treating. They're both holistic, treating the person as a whole. But I think functional nutritionists could also use that supportive, compassionate nature too. It's bridging those two. So that's really the clients I'm seeing now. I'll also say post. I have some clients who have been working with weekly for years. And those clients I've seen have been different recently. And that killer instinct and drive to heal feels like after the just complete bombardment of stress that people have been under for years, I think their stress thresholds are so over that I'm now working with clients who I've known for years
Great
and are now
point.
suffering from panic attacks and
Yeah.
things like that. It's new for them though. This is
Oh,
something
yeah.
they're in there.
Yeah.
Most of my clients are in their 50s and 60s and it's totally new for them. And I'm like, oh, you're not my anxiety client. I'm like, who am I on the phone with right now? Like this is, and of course keeping it light, but addressing the issues. But the mental health piece of the work that we're doing, which I approach from a physical perspective as well as a mindset perspective,
Love that. Yeah.
is like rampant right now. That's really what I'm seeing in the most transparent way, is that people are addressing a lot of psychological issues related to food in a really positive way, but still needing help on the supportive physical side. And other people who have the physical side supported are seeing a lot of mental health issues coming up recently.
One thing I've seen recently, or just my level of awareness with it recently, the last 1-2 years, you hit on it, body positivity. And I want to kind of say this very specifically.
Yeah.
I am all for anybody that does anything to a certain degree that creates or reinforces their ability to love themselves, to respect themselves, and like to first kind of develop acceptance with who they are and where they are so that they then can choose how to move forward in a weight loss goal, weight gain goal, mental, physical health, whatever. But the level to which that it has grown to, I think it was Cosmopolitan or a magazine I saw, I think last year, 2021, 2020, with a clinically obese female on the cover talking about this is what I think the exact title, I may be butchering this, but it was something like, this is what the new health looks like. And I personally I feel some kind of way when we're painting the picture of making basically the same thing of body positivity as the same thing as health. Does that make sense?
It does. It's so funny because, all right. So in the body positivity world, that even I'm telling you is like so contentious and like we're gonna keep it real this whole time. So I'm somewhere between, again, always in the middle ground. I think that what people want to express on those covers is that you literally don't know shit about someone's health from the way that they look, and that is true.
That's a very good point, very fair point. Yeah.
And then also, people have been treated differently in medical settings because of their weight in a tangible way. And that is heinous and that is ridiculous and that is stupid. And I think that the way that I describe the body positivity movement is it is a extreme knee-jerk reaction to a tremendous amount of very real trauma after a really long time. So I use these principles of either compassion or coddling with people. And I really feel that body neutrality is more like compassionate. And I think body positivity at its base is actually very compassionate. But if people do actually need to make health changes and we're saying, I love myself so much, I don't need to make health changes. And I'm really not talking about weight. I'm talking about any health change whatsoever.
Sure. Yeah.
It's about flexing that resilience muscle, and people don't really do that anymore because we have been, I feel no one wants to say real things to people anymore in fear of offending other people and everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
And that to me is not compassionate. So when I see there's a lot of
We're doing a
posts,
disservice, in my opinion. I think ultimately.
yes. Yeah. Although I think that I do feel that, health haze is health at every size. So can you achieve health at any body size? I actually believe yes. Do I think that it's harder? I also think yes. I think that the premise of
if you are I want you to literally imagine like I was a 250 pound person, but I'm the same human being that I am now. In fact, might have been like chiller then. I don't know. I feel like, I was younger. I was like, cool. But I think in understanding that people legitimately treated me differently as a human being because of my size, you can understand. And I couldn't receive medical care because of my size, even though I'm told that medical care, because it always, if I go with an ear infection, if you're 250 pounds, you go with an ear infection, you might hear back, you got to lose weight.
Not what I'm here for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not what I'm here for and not related. I promise you that's not related. So I think that understanding what it can feel like to be marginalized for your body size is so ridiculously dangerous that this is almost like a normal reaction to that. But at some point, as chronic health rates go up, and I really say this, and this is, I know exactly how you feel. It's like we can say there's a phrase that I really don't like called all foods fit, which is basically started probably in eating disorder clinics, and it has been translated to, we see these TikTok videos and Instagram videos of people like pouring these like cinnamon toast crunch and being like, these are childhood foods and they have childhood memories and they, they can, they should be included in your diet. There's no bad foods basically. And I'm like, well, I work with clients who are on the verge of having diabetes, and are you going to be injecting them with insulin? Or are they going to be doing it themselves? You are leaving them high and dry by not giving them vital information. So there is a difference also between, that's not shaming a person. I love shaming food companies. I'll shame food companies all day.
I hear you.
That's not body shaming a person. And what we see on social media right now is that if you even say that, that's body shaming. And I'm like, I haven't shamed anyone's bodies. I'm shaming these food companies for serving these foods to children and causing a chronic illness epidemic where we're now at almost 70% of people in this country have some form of chronic illness. We spend more on healthcare than any other country. It is abysmal and it is so unacceptable. And the fact that we are just saying it's okay that these food companies are doing this. No, you never be mad at the consumer. Be mad at the companies though. That's okay to be mad at them. So that is compassionate to me, to be like, screw you for making a new cinnamon toast crunch. Screw you for passing it down to people and saying it's healthy and and marketing it to children, but not screw you to the people consuming it, because they are, the unfortunate receivers of the illness. It's not I don't feel it's their fault. So yes, this is something that I feel, again, very passionate about, because I don't believe in coddling anyone, regardless of the fact I feel you can be completely and totally compassionate while not coddling people.
Very well said. Thank you. And it kind of makes me go back to like my original statement of, that's really what I have the most friction with, is these companies and organizations and magazine and people that are like putting this information out there. You're close. That person, this clearly over 300 pounds, clinically obese person, do they have now the proper level of mental and emotional health in their life to where they're at acceptance, they're at self-love, they're at respect? Absolutely. Are those three things incredibly important and vital for making and keeping any physical change to your health you want? Absolutely. But it's when we say, these companies, these people say that this is now what health looks like, we're misleading. We're only painting part of the picture. And it's as incredible, I'm sure, as that opportunity was for that person to be on the cover. I'm pretty sure, like I said, it was Cosmo. Like that's an incredible opportunity that is going to fulfill their heart.
Issue with them. You're like, right, exactly.
Get yours. That's amazing. But so I hope that person didn't walk away from that experience feeling like who I am 100% completely, biomarkers, mental health, emotional health is fully optimized right now. Because I would still make the argument that anybody who is clinically obese, there are some other things that you probably at least want to be aware of when it comes to your physical health. Like there are so many people that are just in the quote ideal weight range, body composition, that are a shit show on the inside. Like they also need the same level of approach and care. It's like, hey, just because you look a certain way doesn't mean you are a certain way on the inside.
I totally understand what you're saying. This is the one thing I tread lightly on because
this is all my personal opinion.
No, it's not. It's you share the opinion with almost everyone, and I never want, again, to take away that moment or opportunity from someone. I think we're both saying the same thing, which is that I can't make a judgment on someone else's health without knowing their health. Yeah. And I I don't know necessarily that any person being clinically obese will lead to other health outcomes necessarily, although it leaves you at a higher risk for those other health outcomes for sure. I don't know though what anyone's health is. And I, frankly, this is like certain famous personal trainer, you gotta cut that. Certain famous personal trainers like go on the internet and are constantly talking, like it's like the obsession with Lizzo and the obsession with these celebrities, and they're talking about like, yeah, they have cholesterol and diabetes. I'm like, you need to stop also caring about what their health is when you're not their healthcare professional. It's just like not appropriate.
Powerful, yeah.
But I hear your legitimate concern and fear for consumers in that normalizing human beings as human beings is a wonderful thing, but normalizing health conditions is also not great. I have clients who have, and this is a really good example, who are going to the bathroom like 10 times a day when they come to me. They have severe gut issues. They might be vomiting several times a day. Oof. They're living at that life so much that they're desensitized to the fact that it's completely like they're in severe illness, like they are severely sick and they don't realize that. So the question is like, how much are we going to keep moving the needle, so to speak, and not to pun out on that, but how much are we going to keep moving the needle? How much illness do we have to accept is the question. And I know, and I hear what you're saying in that my answer to the magazine cover directly is I literally cannot make an opinion on someone else's health and have honestly no interest. I'm serving, close to 1,000 people. I'm like, well, whoever's on that cover, great, do whatever you want. It has nothing to do with me. But what you're saying on a larger scale is how is normalizing any aspect of something that can potentially be unhealthy going to be a risk for other people. So I think the desensitization of chronic illness in this country, like I want to scream every day of my life. Almost 70% of people have some sort of chronic illness in this country. It is completely unacceptable and completely preventable. Most of them are preventable. I mean, when we talk about chronic illness, we're talking about preventable lifestyle illnesses too. How can we allow this to happen? How can this be happening? And it's all I can think about all the time. How is everyone else not thinking about that? Because I am very sensitized to this, and I do not think it's okay at all. So like you're saying is like, are we just going to allow like a majority of children one day to have diabetes? Like, when are we going to say this is not okay and not, we have to love ourselves into health issues?
Yeah. I mean, to kind of go the opposite direction. I mean, look at men's health, women's health, look at any health and fitness focused magazine. You see people with like physiques that many of us would like to have, but again, shit show on the inside. I'm sure cholesterol, probably, in a lot of cases, steroid use, how many bodybuilders now, unfortunately, are we hearing that they just fall dead? Have severe cardiovascular attacks, heart attacks, and
exactly
they're the specimens.
The cytokine storms, the flus. I was very exact. No, you're 100% right. It's making judgments on anyone's health from the way they look is a really dangerous road that we never want to go down. Period. Point blank. Absolutely. And then on the flip side of that coin, when do we know that we've gone too far in allowing people to feel like crap all the time? I don't want people to feel like crap all the time. I don't, and I say this, I might be harsh also on like certain, again, like food companies or things, but like that, but I'm like, I'm going to be sitting with these clients when they are sick. You don't care. Like you're not going to care. Like these food companies could not care less if my client is getting diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and I'm instructing them on what they need to eat for the rest of their life. Like they don't care. I really care though. And we know also there's like a really critical time frame when people's blood sugars get out of control, and it's so easy now and so accepted. Like we can't accept chronic illness that's preventable. It's unacceptable. If it's preventable, it's unacceptable. So, and again, that's that soft spot too of where are we coddling and where are we being compassionate? We can be compassionate without coddling. And I think it's just like we have to take down all the food companies. That'll be easy. Yeah.
I'm here for it. Here. I love that. If it's preventable, it's not acceptable.
And exactly. And I think, I got into like, I rarely use Instagram these days, but I got into like an Instagram battle with someone who said, basically, there was a really awesome ancestral functional nutritionist who posted about it was a food product, but it wasn't like, I don't even know if it was like from a food company, but it was a food product that It could have been like inflammatory oils or something like that. And she said like, basically this can produce inflammation, and posted a couple studies to show like how can, lead to inflammation. And a lot of dietitians posted and said, your information's not accessible for people. What if people are, lower income or something like that? And this is the only thing they have access to. And then I basically, my argument was, well, if people have low accessibility to things and they're lower income, they're actually at higher risk for health conditions. So I would give them the respect to give them the information they need and solutions within the information they need. So
super crazy idea.
Crazy idea. And people feel like, again, it's this, I want to protect people from information. You asked this question before, how are people getting their information? They're not, because they're getting morality, virtue signaling equivalents instead of actually getting healthcare information, because people
they're
are
rarely getting information. They're more likely getting marketed.
Exactly.
There's a difference.
The information that they're getting from nutrition is actually from the companies who are selling them. And the information they're getting about health is actually from dietitians who are coddling them sometimes, and practitioners. Not dietitians, I love dietitians. Practitioners who are coddling them sometimes. And I think that we have to sort through what is, again, objective information. At this point, we have a great deal of information about, vegetable oils that are, pretty much, I think, pretty solid evidence on any scale that can tell us, and a tremendous amount of anecdotal evidence that they can produce inflammation in the body. Why would you prohibit that information from the most marginalized communities who need the support the most? They're the people who need it. And feeling like you're the gatekeeper of that information, to me, is like, I don't know. I don't gatekeep information from people. I give information to people, and they're allowed to take it how they want. And of course you do that in a compassionate way, because we know we collect this trauma around things and these food fears around things. But sometimes it's okay to be a little afraid of something that's going to lead to something really dangerous in the long term. Like, it's okay to feel distaste for it, because that's a good thing, because then you won't have it, and hopefully that'll help. Shouldn't
we hope to feel more uncomfortable with something now versus living in regret over it later?
100%.
Because to your point, it was preventable.
100%, yes. And also, I don't like the idea of protecting people from information. I don't like the idea of feeling that we are the people. That puts you above the consumer.
Yeah.
So you are now owning what is appropriate for them or not. And a lot of times now on social media, again, the anti-diet culture movement is really about like attacking practitioners who are giving information. And it's like, how are you helping someone by doing that? Saying a low FODMAP diet is an eating disorder. Like, how do you think that is necessarily helping someone who has a gut issue? Missing the mark on the mission. I think a lot of that is very ego driven. I think a lot of that is more clickbait driven. Yeah. To your point, like, you might have the intention of, I want to take down the entity. I want to really get the right information out there. Well, get the right information out there. Don't just keep attacking everybody else. Like, you're still missing the mark here. Exactly. And who is always left out of it? The client. The people that need it. The people that need it. You're protecting them, saying, low income. This is literally a conversation I had. Low income people cannot know that, or food insecure people cannot know that vegetable oils are unhealthy for them. And I'm like, who made you the boss of what other people get to know? And why would you know this information, this solid scientific information, not share it with the people who need it the most? How did you decide to be the president of what people get to know and not know? And why would you hold that from people? To me, that's like the ultimate level of coddling. And it's like what we fear we become. The more that we try to prevent and hold and protect people, ultimately, again, like we always say, you got to empower people to do it themselves. And that includes giving really good information when necessary. It includes holding people to a high standard. We're a good species. We can rock it together, and being compassionate allows people to do that. I think, saying like people can't handle knowing that vegetable oils are unhealthy. They're good. They can handle it. Everyone can handle it. And you deciding what people can handle or not is super ineffective and super egotistical, like you said. And it kind of brings up another point for me about diet culture is what happens a lot of times when people embark on a particular diet and you do experience success. Yeah. These people, to their own definition, become the champions of these diets. Become, hey, this worked. This works. This is the only thing that works. This is going to work for everybody in the same way all the time. It's
like, no, it works for you. Who are you to now pass on this information as the information for anybody and everybody else?
Everyone becomes the expert once they've done it. I will also tell you, like, so embarrassingly, that I lost my weight on a very strict vegan diet, which was really just I just did it under the guise of an eating disorder. I really did have an eating disorder and was actually just like, how can I get away with just not eating things in front of people? And basically I'm going to just say that.
And be socially acceptable.
Vegan. Yeah. I'm also so like, I can be such a, I'm going to use the word militant, but I'm not going to use that with you.
No, it's fine.
Like you're actually, I'm like not going to use that. I'm such a like decisive person that I basically was like, I'm going to be vegan for whatever reason. And I'm going to continue doing that. And then I was like, if you eat meat, you're like terrible. And I was like, before I was a dietitian, I was like, so, I'm all about that. And like, I am still apologizing 10 years later for what has happened there. I was like,
the work never ends.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really the worst advice you can take from someone is what worked for someone else. That's like the least helpful nutrition advice you can ever get is like what worked for Aunt Karen at Thanksgiving. Couldn't care less. And my family knows there's no diet talk in my house. Like if I'm going to make a food decision, it's never going to be based on what annoying diet my Jewish mother in Queens is doing. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's never going to be.
What's up, Mom?
Exactly. Yeah. Hi, Joyce. It's never going to be based on that. It's always going to be based on what I feel is right for me. So I invite my clients to set really strong boundaries around that too. If someone is making a comment about a diet, just say, and this is like my favorite trick. And I hope that the people who give diet advice don't hear this because then they'll know that I'm doing this with them. But I tell my clients to say, I actually don't need any help right now, but if I do, you're the first person I'll ask and I will come to you first. And it makes people feel really valued. And it also puts their guard down because I know when, my Jewish mother is telling me to do a diet and hasn't for a very long time. And again, we have these boundaries, but she's doing it because she loves me and she wants me to be healthy and she wants me to be safe. So responding in a way that feels defensive for people is like, oh my God, you're not going to be safe and I'm not going to be able to protect you. So it's usually out of love that people are doing that or narcissism sometimes, but sometimes it's also.
Yeah, love and narcissism.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's a difficult coin to figure out. Yeah.
But acknowledging I hear that you're trying to help me, but I actually don't need that can feel really dissipating for people.
Well, I want to ask you one final question that will help people. All these things we've been talking about are ways that we can take tools from other people's toolbox, put them into our own and figure ourselves out, get in tune with ourselves, turn down the noise and crank up the right one, the right voice so that we can move forward in life, live a life ever forward, as I say. When you hear those two words, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So I would say that accessing your own intuition is the way to live ever forward in every direction because you're almost never wrong when you're listening to your authentic self. So get to know the different parts of yourself, get to listening to the different parts of yourself. And no matter what comes up, do not be afraid. You can have the darkest thought in the world and you can do the same thing every time, which is just accepting it, acknowledging it, and letting it go away. I promise every single person, they know so much more about themselves and their health than they can ever imagine, that they have within themselves in this exact moment the tools to start healing. And I love this quote, like every day in every way I'm getting better and better. And the way to do that really is by just listening to yourself. It's also like, oh, I got this ping that I want to go to this new practitioner or something like that. Go towards it and not away from it. When it feels like something I choose to, that's how you take that step ever forward and keep moving.
Mic drop. Love that one. You're incredible, very passionate and authentic. And I've enjoyed getting to know you before this and here today. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Chase, for
My pleasure.
inviting me on this. I'm like so stoked. And I think it was a big conversation and I think we were saucy and I'm really excited. Thank you so much.
And thanks to Dr. Lion out there, Gabrielle, we love you. Just making good people find more good people.
Absolutely.
Where can everybody connect with you more? We're going to have all of your information, of course, down in the show notes, video notes for everybody, but where can they connect with you, hanging out the most online?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Michelle Shapiro RD. On Instagram, I have a website, michelleshapirord.com. So it's super easy, same exact thing. I am taking by the time this airs, probably very few clients in my practice. So the best way to work with me now is through my new membership, which helps to connect people.
Which we didn't even get into. Yes. This please share. It's incredible.
No, we were getting into so much other stuff. So Wellness Map is
I think by the time this airs, it's going to be like so hot that I'm not even saying it's new at this point.
You heard her here first, everybody.
Exactly. So Wellness Map is a monthly membership where people can get access to informational resources and then actual tangible services to help connect them with functional medicine providers. So right off the bat, when you sign up, you get free services. So it's like a little bit like a class pass, but for functional medicine. And then
Great
also
model.
information on how to analyze some of your own lab work, what to bring to doctor's appointments, how to approach doctor's appointments, how to kind of nudge your doctors to give you the answers to the questions that you really need. And it's really a system to help people to get from point A of feeling really dismissed and ignored and not feeling well to feeling really good and with the care team that we really need to be with. And I have an excellent practitioner directory who are all highly vetted practitioners in there. So it's like
Amazing.
a step-by-step guide of how do you actually find a practitioner you love and get the health that you deserve.
We're in the future, everybody. We're in the future. We're here. I love it. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chase.